we wear as something like depends for space.
Yeah, that would have been sexy.
Now, the Russians shot down the satellite. We were talking about this, I know, after the movie, and the Chinese have done it once, and we've did it as well, and none of these things happened. So apparently this is maybe more of a common occurrence that kind of started this whole chain reaction of the debris in space, and maybe some of the physics behind that were kind of off. And I know that satellites are going to be at a different distance than what a space shuttle is going to be at, as far as your angle in space, just naturally, to avoid things like this happening.
Yeah, and I mean, just to be clear about that, we didn't really talk, a whole lot about the plot because it was pretty straightforward, but how all this gets kind of going is a satellite is destroyed in space in Earth, near Earth orbit, and causing a debris field. So you have this debris that's just rotating around the Earth at 35,000 miles per hour, and a little piece of metal from this satellite it's like a bullet, and a lot of the space stuff, as we'll call it up there,
space shit.
Yeah,
as I like to call it.
A lot of the space shit is actually very delicate stuff that these little shards of debris just destroy. And what's neat, probably the neatest thing about the whole movie is when that stuff, when the debris cloud comes through, and they make a point of not. We were talking about sound earlier. They make a point of having that be dead silent because there is no sound up there. So you see these incredible violent explosions and stuff as this stuff just tearing through the NASA equipment, the space shuttle, is the International Space Station, and it's completely silent. So it really makes that whole thing just. I was just on the edge of my seat during all that. It was crazy. It was like, how can you? I mean, you're so used to hearing just big explosions and all kinds of crazy stuff, and it was just completely silent. And you just watch this just stuff disintegrating around Sandy Bullock. It was crazy. That stuff just, incredibly well done, just visually amazing.
Oh yeah, I thought it was outstanding. And the other thing about this movie, I feel like, through what she went through, I feel like space is probably even a little more unforgiving than that. There was a lot of things that went wrong. There was fires. There were, the debris. I just feel like somebody's chances through any of that would be pretty much nil. I mean, there is just no forgiving in space. And, they do try to make a point of that, about the heat and the cold and, lack of oxygen. And
but didn't you feel, though, they talk about the heat and the cold, but that's never really an issue in the whole thing, right?
Well, she almost freezes to death at one point, I would say.
Well, yeah, but it didn't need to be 300 degrees below zero for that to happen. I mean, It wasn't like, extreme to the point of. They do show corpses that are frozen and things, and that apparently would happen up there. But I don't know. I look back, cinema history. You mentioned 2001, Stanley Kubrick. I have to look back at Armageddon, and just the way. Ben Affleck got off that space station. I mean, that to me is a little bit more realistic than what was going on.
Sure, yeah. Armageddon, of course, has been proven factual time and time again.
Yes.
By many scientists and movie critics alike. So, overall, I mean, would you recommend this movie?
I would recommend this movie in the theater on an IMAX or XD 3D experience type of cinema. And I don't necessarily think it even needs to be a big screen. I mean, I said IMAX. Maybe it needs to be that. I don't know. But I think as long as you're in the theater and in the 3D, the better viewing experience you can get, the better. But beyond that,
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not the great movie that you may be hearing about to us. Now, you may see it and be blown away by it. But honestly, and this is kind of unusual for me because I'm somebody who usually gives movies the benefit of the doubt. However, because there was so much hype and because there was so much, it seemed, universal, love for this, that I wanted to take a critical look at it and see if it was really deserving of the praise that it's getting. And I found it lacking in ways, and like I said, I came out of there exhausted, and a lot of times I go to movies for an escape. somewhere that I can go to.
It's an investment. It's an emotional investment.
Yeah, I mean, it takes you through an entire roller coaster, and there are some touching moments with Bullock that tug at the heartstrings, and by the end though, I was relieved when it was done. I was like, I'm glad this is finished, and I don't think this is a movie I could watch twice, to be honest.
It's as visually striking as it was. I do not have the urge to go out and watch it again, like right now. You know what I mean? It's
right.
Maybe if I had the chance to see it on the big screen again in a year or two, I'd probably enjoy it. And I mean, we should also mention that it wasn't exactly the most comfortable viewing experience. We saw it on opening night in a new theater. It was packed, and we had people next to us. I had a woman next to me that every time anything happened on screen, she went, "Oh!" Now, if you heard that all night, I mean, you understand why I wasn't really relaxing.
I should have been doing that this whole time.
Every time I say something, just go, "Oh!" And I will also say that her boyfriend, who was on the other side of her from me, well, I guess that would be obvious. When Sandy Bullock pops off the spacesuit for the first time, and if I hadn't mentioned already, she's very attractive. Mm-hmm. He said something like, "Oh yeah," or something, and she went, "Shut up," and smacked him on his arm.
Kind of a man after my own heart, I would say. I think we get right along with him.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed all right, except when he had his phone out. I mean, that was kind of distracting.
Yeah, a little bit, especially when he was calling us and being like, "Hey man, did you see Sandra Bullock?
Yeah.
That bitch was fine," you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then that's when she smacked him.
Yeah, that was pretty much when she smacked him. And then she smacked me because I said, hello, because I couldn't hear him anymore. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was awkward.
Ooh.
Maybe that should be my catchphrase.
Yeah, I'm gonna believe me, post-production, I'm gonna rip that out. I'm gonna add it to the entire podcast.
Okay. I'm fine with that. What do you think about some trailer trash, my friend?
Yeah, let's get into some trailer trash.
In a world where trailers are sometimes better than the movie itself, two renegade loose cannon reviewers dig deep into their knowledge to save the world. Review trailers. This is Trailer Trash.
All right, first up on our trailer list, we have Captain Phillips. Now, this is a movie starring Tom Hanks.
Oh, yeah.
The true story of Captain Richard Phillips and the 2009 hijacking by Somali pirates of the U.S.-flagged MV Maersk, Alabama, the first American cargo ship to be hijacked in 200 years.
And I should say right off the top here, Tom Hanks, very attractive man.
Looks pretty good. Pretty good.
Fit. This is directed by Paul Greengrass, who you might know from movies like The Green Zone with Matt Damon, and also the Bourne franchise. He's big into that. He didn't do all of those.
No, he did the last two, I believe.
Did the last two, which great action, very realistic action. And considering this is a true story, based on a true story, and from what I understand, and I just actually listened to Tom Hanks on the Nerdist podcast today talking about this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's very, and Tom, he's a pretty straight shooter.
Right.
And he said that this movie is it's not based on a true story. It is like almost scene for scene actual events.
And you know what? Tom Hanks, when was the last time he took a bad role or a bad script? I mean, the guy is only in hits, basically, anymore. Solid actor, makes good decisions as far as movie goes.
Well, he did that movie with Julia Roberts. What was that, like Thomas Crown? No, it wasn't Thomas Crown. What was that movie? Larry Crown. Was that any good?
Is Larry Crown a brother of Thomas Crown? I don't know.
I haven't seen it, so I
haven't seen it.
I shouldn't cast aspersions.
I'm going to say that it's great because I just put on record that I thought Tom Hanks took only good movies and scripts and everything. So I'm going to have to go with the fact that, this is probably
good. And I'm going to say,
It was written by Billy Ray. Now, I don't know if that's Billy Ray Cyrus or the guy who sings for Green Day, but he also did the screenplay for The Hunger Games and State of Play. And Richard Phillips himself, he wrote the book, Captain's Duty, Somali Pirates, Navy SEALs, and the Dangerous Days at Sea.
Yeah, I don't have high hopes for this movie. I think it'll be pretty good. I think it's worth seeing. It comes out October 11th, so it'll be out this coming weekend.
Which is why we're doing it. We try to do movies on Trailer Trash that'll be coming up for the weekend, so we can kind of give you the recommendation on what would be the movie to see this weekend. And, I think this is going to be a solid offering with Tom Hanks and a good true story, a nice, probably patriotic story with the SEAL team going in and taking care of business. And I think there's also a little bit of a message to this as well, because we see some conversations with the Somali pirates, and we can kind of see that they're not doing this out of fun. It's
the way they make their living.
It's the way they make their living. I'm not sure if that's, maybe the best way to make a living, but I think it's going to be an interesting story. So I would have high hopes for this, and so far I would give it a recommendation. But next up, we have a movie that I think is going to be really entertaining.
Oh yeah.
And the trailer is rolling. Now, if you haven't seen this, if you haven't seen the trailer, basically the phone is being picked up, passed across several very good-looking women. I've got to say, they are extremely good-looking.
Attractive, very attractive.
And the phone is picked up by Charlie Sheen, who is the president. Of course, this movie we're talking about is Machete Kills.
All roll up in the war.
Yeah, Danny Trejo revisiting the character that made him famous, Machete. The story on this is the U.S. government recruits Machete to battle his way through Mexico in order to take down an arms dealer who looks to launch a weapon into space. And, hey, we know how bad things can go when weapons are shot up into space. We just saw
that, yeah.
Yeah, that's rough. And what I love about the best thing about this movie is it's a complete farce, and I love it. It's just over the top. Robert Rodriguez, obviously, the original Machete, if you didn't already know this, was basically spawned from a fake trailer that was done for the Grindhouse movies that Quentin Tarantino was a part of. Mm-hmm. Now, it was that trailer was probably better, and I love me some Tarantino, don't get me wrong, but that trailer was probably better than most of the rest of those movies, right?
No, I agree, yeah.
And so it was a phenomenon, so they made the first movie, and the first movie's great, and I have a feeling this one's going to be even more over the top and even better, especially with the cast.
Oh, sure, the arms dealer who is launching the weapon into space is Mel Gibson. I mean,
yeah,
Mel Gibson
Big time.
Yeah,
Big time.
That's great. So it's got Mel Gibson, Amber Heard, Michelle Rodriguez, Sofia Vergara,
who, can I just say, actually, all the women you just mentioned, all very hot, very attractive. Very attractive.
And another one here, Lady Gaga is actually in this movie.
Also, La Chameleon.
Which is that a person?
I have no idea.
Or did I accidentally maybe paste a character?
I just wanted to say it. I have no idea. Antonio Banderas is in it, though.
Cuba Gooding Jr. and Vanessa Hudgens.
Ooh.
Now, Antonio Banderas, of course, starred in probably the most well-known of Robert Rodriguez's movies that first put him on the scene, Desperado, which, of course, is basically a sequel to El Mariachi, which is lesser known, but worth a watch if you ever get an opportunity.
Yeah, El Mariachi's good. Mariachi's good. I would definitely recommend that. Looking through the cast, all kinds of credits here. Amber Heard, very hot. Mm-hmm. She was in Drive Angry with Nick Cage.
Right.
Looked very good in that.
Looked hot in that.
Michelle Rodriguez, she's been in all kinds of stuff, but she was in SWAT. Mm-hmm. Remember that movie?
She was on the show Lost.
She was on Lost. She's been in the several of the Fast and Furious franchise movies.
Ooh.
Sofia Vergara. Ooh, yeah. That's a spicy meatball.
Hey now.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Hey now.
Sorry.
Anybody do that? Hey now.
Yeah, I think so. We got that covered. But Sofia Vergara, well-known hottie, known probably for most people from Modern Family. Very, very funny character in that show. So yeah, I mean this